Hello and welcome to the Sound on Sound podcast about electronic music and all things synth. I'm Caro C, and in this episode I'm talking with Martin Kohlstedt from Germany. Martin describes his music as instrumental music and electronica. Trained as a jazz pianist, Martin is passionate about improvisation, but also needs that contrast with electronic instruments to create his sound world. Improvisation is indeed central to his live shows as he strives for deep connection with his audience and the performance space. Apart from his own compositions, Martin writes music and scores for movies, plays, podcasts, and audiobooks. Let's start with a taste of Martin's music. Here's an extract from his most recent album called Live, made up of recordings from his 2023 European tour. Hello, Martin Kohlstedt, and welcome to the Sound on Sound podcast.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much for fitting this in, because I know you're busy preparing for a tour at the moment. Yeah, I think to start with, what I'm most curious about is it sounds like you've got some training in there on the piano. So how did you get drawn into the world of electronic music?
Yeah, first of all, I started with playing the piano as a 12-year-old boy at my childhood's home in the very middle of Germany. So it was in the woods, and I improvised on my own on this detuned upright in the living room. But I would say 10 years later, or let's say 8 years later, I needed something which is kind of the opposite side of the argument. So I started to discuss with myself. You get in this adolescence thing, and you have to there have to be a friction also in music. And I started with synthesizers very far away from, very artificial, very far away from the piano. So I had this organic past arguments and this, present artificial arguments, and this is what I still do on stage in a very, organic, familiar form. Let them form new phrases out of these instruments.
Yeah, that's nice. The friction. Yeah. So for you, it's not all about it being harmonious or in agreement. You want that kind of clashing contrast or something like that?
Sometimes, but I'm also into the cliches. I also love the pure harmonics. I love the very loud, dissonant, epic, electronic, big pressure bass. But to be honest, I think the energy or the petrol for the whole thing is in the contrast of both sides.
Yeah, because you say contrast, but I think they also really work nicely together. I've gone down a bit of a synthwave piano rabbit hole at the moment.
Yeah.
And for me, it's almost like the synths hold the piano at times, and sometimes the piano holds the synth's soundscape. So do you see those as kind of equal parts, if you like, between the piano and or is it a conversation, or how does that feel for you?
For me, the piano and all these, I would say, themes from are like thoughts from the past, so to say. I have the feeling it's not now, or I cannot really handle it out of my intuition. What I do with this electronic sound is bring these past piano pieces into the present and convert them into the future together. So I have this different points of time which I create with the piano, and I can improvise in a modular way with different times, different rooms, different situations and thoughts of myself. And this is what I need for myself in a very meditative way. And I never expected that people get into it in the same way. So I'm very happy about that. And kind of a ceremonial way processing these stuff.
Yeah, I think you very much communicate that for you it is a magic moment. You bring the whole of yourself and in your live performances, and you want it to be that magical moment with people, don't you? Even though it sounds like obviously there's a lot of planning and preparation that goes into it.
Yeah, true. I try to activate the people next to me. We're sitting in the same direction. It's not like I'm being on stage and entertain the people. It's more like a familiar, same directional feeling, kind of a Churchill moment somehow, but not in this big epic way. It's more like in this connected way. I love that. So, and it's very important for me to get out of myself with this music. So the people make me brave enough to step out of this safe place and go with and deal with these uncertainties.
Yeah, I'm a visual person, so I'm seeing this ship that's sort of going into this voyage of discovery. We're all on the same ship, and then we're heading off together. Let's see what happens. Is that how it feels?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Sometimes it's very close to. It could be sad. It could be everything you never know before. To be honest, mostly it's a very exciting expressive feeling where you get out of yourself and grow somehow personally. But sometimes you get small, like this 12 years old boy at the piano back in the 90s, and it's always a surprise what happened also personally in every concert.
Wow. Yeah, that must be quite tiring.
Yeah, it is. After a concert, you feel like very tired, but mostly in a positive way because people understand you. You are kind of in a circle of therapy. But most important for me is like to process thoughts and feelings all the time. I mean, it's typical for music. It's emotional. The electronic music tries to structure it somehow, make it basic, and then you have this organic piano which has no rhythm or whatever, and tries to connect to the world. And this is what always happens. So left half of the brain and right half of the brain tries to get together.
Yeah, I was just thinking that you are. I mean, we all are when we're performing or sharing. But it's also that form of communication. I think a lyric I used in my last album was there's something about electronic sound where you can pinpoint that emotion or that feeling or that communication in a way that's not necessarily restricted to traditions. So, for example, if it's a piano, already a note has been decided for you. You might want to go between a C and a C sharp, and it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas there's something about electronic sound where almost for me, the piano is quite a structured sound. And obviously a lot of the time does come with it a lot of tradition. So there's something, I hope, almost kind of a bit freeing or a bit more open about adding electronic music to that, adding electronic sound. Does that work for you at all?
Yeah, it works for me. It's a very good. It's a good zoom out for me. Also, I'm deep inside of the center, but you're right. The piano is always bringing back and make the chapters of the whole storytelling. Yeah, and for me, everything is connected through that instrument, and then you can do experiments with or like open different windows with these electronic sounds. And after now 10 years of releasing stuff, the electronic comes closer and closer and more organic to the piano, and the piano got more and more artificial. So they meet in the center as one whole group of instruments.
Nice. One quick question before we get nerdy about instruments. Are you ever tempted to use your voice?
Yeah, to be honest, my voice is kind of on every album, but hidden in the track. Sometimes as a choir in the background, sometimes as one voice in the center, but pitched or somewhere. Yeah, I have thoughts about bringing the voice in because it's a very strong instrument. Not as I don't like words or like the value of words, to be honest. They are too small for what I try to create in music. But yeah, but the voice itself, if it's for example, is it female or is it male? Is a big difference in what it does with your subconscious, and so I'm interested in using it for the future. But let's see how.
So in those early days, playing with piano first and then adding synthesizers or electronic sounds, what instruments could you access at that time? Were they software? Was it hardware?
I'm a hardware guy, to be honest. So I need knobs and I need this working stuff. I don't like this long cut through the left half of the brain, bringing like layers on a DAW or something, and then you click and the idea is gone. For me, an idea is like a Pokemon. You have to catch it with a ball directly because it's intuition. So sometimes I have an idea for just 30 seconds, and if I have to set up something before it's gone. So I'm a hardware guy. I'm very into, my very first synthesizer was a Korg MS-2000, so like the bigger brother of this micro Korg stuff with the same chip, and it was kind of an own arm of myself. So to be honest, I was very fast in doing the sounds and the initial sounds and everything I heard. I just needed 20 seconds to bring the sound in I liked. So I started with a very dry sound of the MS-2000 in combination with a piano, mostly basses with a piano, because I wanted to support the piano in the beginning. But then after like a few months, you start to concurrence. You do the concurrence with the piano sounds.
So almost in competition with each other, you mean?
Yeah. The friction we talked about in the very beginning. So yeah, I tried to what are the arguments? What is better? Is louder the better, or is this a frequency? So I started with sound synthesis. So, and I studied at the Bauhaus University here in Weimar. So I wrote plugins. I was a programmer here, and I started to build own synthesizers here. And so I got into this material very fast. And so sound was a completely new thing for me. Electronic sound, reach sounds you never heard before. That was what I aimed for also in my bachelor thesis.
So starting from what you had then, how has your electronic instrument tools, let's say, how have they grown, and what are you taking on tour with you?
Yeah, so after the MS-2000, I was very into the Prophet sound. So I have a sequential 10 on stage, which I control with an osmose for an expressive E. So my music is intuitive, and I was very happy that people invented that intuitional keys. You can go left and right, and you surf the sounds somehow. And these MPE controlling I can use for all the other synths too, with all these aftertouch things. So I have 4 synthesizers on stage, which I control with one key, and I mix the synthesizer sounds on stage to make one big sounds out of it. And with it, I have a Uno 06, the boutique version, the very small one for the analog basses mostly. And then I add sounds of this millennial instrument, Roland Phantom XR. I'm in love with this choir sounds when they try to generate choir sound in the realistic. They try to be realistic, and I love that feeling of this old school choir stuff with this opera, and combined with these analog basses of the Uno, with these lead sounds of the Prophet, and then you have this, I would say, organic melody clink things of the osmosis. You can make every world you want. So, and this is what I'm working with. I have a looper on stage, a normal the 600 looper of the Roland Boss. Then I have these drum kits. So I have a hand sonic where with own sounds where I can create very fast own beats without a sync. So I don't work with syncs or timing. So in a very old school way, I put in drums and then the speed resulting out of this loop, which I can create, which I can combine, with the MPC. I have the old Archive 500, the very small one I'm working with on stage, and a lot of reverb and effect stuff. So everything is reachable on stage. I have a Fender Rhodes on my left side and the realistic grand piano on the right side, so I can fly through. As in a cockpit with the people.
Wonderful, wonderful. And do you have a mix engineer with you?
I have, and you need that, and he needs to know you, because it has to be kind of an emotional connected friend, because it's all improvisation, and he has to order all these different synthesizers and all my thoughts on its way. And it's the same with a light engineer. It's a very close, familiar group, and in an Eastern German collective way, we are traveling around Europe.
Yes, and do the old synths all travel okay? Are they okay with traveling? Because I remember Suzanne Ciani saying that was the scariest part is traveling, but she had to take a plane, so I suppose it's different.
I had a lot of instrument in the past where I was kind of crying when I saw these problems and all these functions and all the vibrations, and so the most important old school stuff. So I have a lot of old Soviet synths here. I cannot travel with them on tour. So I have a fast setup on tour where can I create ideas in a very fast way, and then I have this experimenting synthi area at home where I need an hour to create one sound.
So how does all this translate into the studio experience for you personally? When you know you're recording an album, do you approach it like you do a live show, or is it completely different?
Yeah, it needs to be improvisation still for me. So I start a recording. Sometimes when I'm going to start with the piano, I start with a 30-40 minute session where I try to get an essence of the main theme, so to say. When I'm going to start with a synthesizer, it's always kind of testing out, and then a wave is coming, and then you have to surf it, and sometimes it's working and sometimes not. So I have a lot of skits here, and they are hop or top, so they are 0% or 100%, so I can bring them into different orders. But it's not about producing in a very fast way. It's for me the third step, I would say. After bringing first ideas together to 70%, I'm going to start in a very fast, detailed way to produce it, but not to kill the idea. That is very important for me.
Yeah, I imagine you need a bit of reflection time after you've showed up and you're putting down those ideas, and then you need some reflection time to actually be able to, digest them in a sense.
Yeah, this is a very hard this is the hardest part of the own job, to listen to your own first ideas, so to say. For the live album I did last year, I need to hear like 400 different improvisations of your own. And this is hard. 70 recorded concerts in a row, and you sit at home on your carpet, laying on your carpet, and you hated it, and you go through yourself. You have to deal with yourself in a massive way. So this is a very hard part. But this is the science behind it. You have to mirror it all the time, what you are doing, and this is how you develop the whole thing.
Yeah, and you kind of, it's always a sort of stepping in, stepping out as well. It's like you have to completely step into yourself to create the music, but you also have to step out of yourself to be able to work with it, don't you?
Absolutely. This is the ambivalence of an artist in 2025, I would say. You have to be inside and outside of yourself. You have to be authentic, but in the same way, you have to calculate all next steps. It's crazy.
Yeah, I had a friend recently saying, we kind of expected to, open ourselves out and give everything and express everything about humanity, but then there's kind of no support about what that does to us when we then expose that to the world, kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, we have to be incredibly resilient as well. Still a wonderful life, of course. Yeah, so how did that all kind of develop for you in terms of, popularity, finding labels, like you say, realising that the world actually wanted to listen to your internal expressions?
Yeah, when I started with this instrumental music stuff, it was kind of close to Jean-Michel Jarre or whatever. So this is what my first thoughts. The album Leaf was a big part, and I listened to Sigur Rós also. And so these new sounds, I was totally in love with. But I'm from a small village in the very middle of Germany in the woods, and I had never have had ever the dream to be an artist or whatever. So I wanted to do. I was a programmer at the university. Music was kind of an hobby, and but after a very big familiar crash, so my mother died in cancer. I was on my way back to this 12 years old boy which just played piano. While my mother was like working around me in a very loud way, and remembering all this stuff, I thought this is the only authentic thing I've ever done in my whole life. Not the band projects, not the calculated things, not the products I've ever made. It was the how I made it and not what I made it. And so I started with instrumental music again and founded my own label with it. For me, it was important to not explain what I'm doing and not explain people why I don't need that black and white pick as a piano player or like as a big composer. I wanted to have a very safe place, and I needed this very safe place to make a new home inside of me and also for my music. So it was a very personal thing to found this Edition Kohlstedt label with me, and then I added people I was in love with and not what have the best competence for music business. So I started with a good friend who called people where I can maybe play a concert, and then there was a guy who was helping me with an online shop and selling the first self-made CDs. It was a very rough but very true and serious beginning of something new. So and it is still like that. We were only in one small liaison with Warner for this big choir album. So there was too much risk to make it on your own. It was $100,000 things and very big choir things. I wanted to be safe in it and without the risk, to be free in what I'm doing. So we made 3 albums with them on our way, and then we got back to our independent self-made DIY label, Edition Kohlstedt, and what it is now. And I feel very safe there because I'm the only signed artist on it. And it was very important to me to be oversaved from all the people.
Wonderful, wonderful. And do you ever do music for film or to commission or for other art forms?
It is a very important part, to be honest, of the whole story, because when you do score music or something like you zoom out everything, and your whole responsibility for feelings is a character in a movie. So you get out of your own problems for the very first time and reimagine it with this other character, but with your own experiences. And to be honest, it's very simple is a wrong word. It's very easy for me to do that. Getting feelings out of myself to bring them into music is much harder than the responsibility for a movie or whatever. I like to get into it. I'm very good in following feelings of other people and also of the conductors or the directors of the movies, and being a slaved to his feelings or her feelings. And it's so good to yeah, to follow sometimes. And sometimes I miss that feeling because I have to decide every day 100 little and big things. And score music is kind of an own road but also with your music. So sometimes I got this score music back to my own music and the other way around.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how about collaborations? Have you had any interesting collaborations that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, when you do music, which is always in a process, and it is kind of my albums are like a collection of arguments which I let discuss with each other on stage and all on the following albums too. So my first album, there were pieces which I created and developed in this second album and developed in the third album. So sometimes they are kind of in an evolution to follow. So in between, like in a good talk, like us two, you know, you need somebody in front of you or next to you to talk with. If you have just a discussion with yourself, it's not a real discussion. You stay in a loop somehow. But the right questions or the right subjects from outside are very important. So I created rework albums with every album cyclus I had. So with the first album, with the second album, with the third and the fourth, I have about 40 different collaborations with, for example, Peter Broderick, Douglas Dare, Christian Löffler. So sometimes it's kind of this electronic music culture. Sometimes they are singers doing their lyrics on it. Sometimes so many different, very important people I was working with, and they gave me the essence of the pieces and developed the pieces on their own, and this gave me also the next task for the pieces, which are being in contrast like little monsters, like little creatures following their own lifelines.
Wow, awesome, awesome. So in terms of, like you say, growing up in the woods, I have a kind of natural, for me, contradiction of nature and technology. So I'm just wondering for you how that works in terms of how does that live with you and in your music and in your art?
Yeah, it's a good question. I couldn't say in that very romantic way that nature inspires when I go through a forest, it inspires me to new compositions. I think this is a too old-fashioned romantic picture of it. It's more that nature for me is an important catalysator for the thoughts. So you have these creatures like trees. They live far beyond and very long before you were born, and they will live after you died. So you're kind of you're a small part of a bigger world. I think this pressure is a good inspiration, to be honest. You're walking through it, and your thoughts order in the same way, like this architecture of nature. And all my album covers are following these nature architecture. So it's always that nature has no order, but when you look closer, it has a very straight order, to be honest. And this ecosystem is kind of also the petrol or the volcano for inspiration. When I was a child and I had conflicts, or I was in my first love, and she never answered, I went out with my dog to the nature, and all the thoughts. I brought all the thoughts into line through nature, through walking through the nature. So because you're not a human in a human world, you're then a human in the nature world, and I like to be part of something bigger. Also in all what I'm doing, I'm really a child of the woods. I'm very connected to projects which helps middle or central European forests to get better again after this climate change stuff. So There is a very conscious connection to it, but a much bigger subconscious connection to nature, also in doing the music. Yeah.
You've been also funding or supporting ecological projects. Is it tree planting you've been doing in terms of your carbon footprint from touring?
Yeah, that was the first idea. To re-watching what we did in our past and carbon capturing, I would say. Yeah, I tried to get deeper in the responsibility for this carbon capturing thing before, because we had also like long drives from our city to the other, and also the people who are coming to the concerts are also like mostly traveling, and I was thinking about a lot, and we started to renaturate forests here in the very middle of Thuringia. So all these monoculture forests are dead now, and with a lot of help of volunteers, and we have the first financial power we got from the concerts. We recreated trees, and over the next 60 years they capture all the carbon we used for all the concerts, so to say, we have a big calculation, and we are very into this. Maybe not in the English language, but we have a big newsletter which explains everything in a very close way. We try to route our tours very intelligent, without flights, and we try to be responsible also for the productions of vinyl and CDs and so on and so on. This is very important for me too, also as being connected to nature.
And I imagine your touring schedule, the plan, must be quite structured, because you obviously need to recover from performance, you need to prepare for performance, you need to somehow connect to the world in between performances, reconnect with yourself. Yeah, how does that all work out for you?
The most interesting thing with this is that you get into a routine, getting introverted and extroverted out of yourself in front of the people. So you need that row of concerts to being authentic in your improvisation. You need that other world for 1 month to really stand that tasks, being true to the music. And sometimes the first and the second and the third gig is mostly a little more constructed. So it's maybe 50-50 in improvisation and kind of an uncertainty setlist you do in your brain, But after this, you get into this outer space mode. So you are tired over the days. You're driving and seeing something, but your eyes are just half opened, and about 5 p.m. your heart starts to beat, and all your energies flowing into this 2 hours, sometimes 1.5 hour improvisation of that evening, with a lot of power. So your day is just 3 hours long, to be honest. It's more like, and in between is you're right, kind of a recovering, but it's more like a standby mode. And after a tour, you can just lay down for 2 weeks, but you're happy and you're fully empty in a positive way, also kind of a spiritual way. But it's really, you're empty, you absolutely empty, because you talked about everything, about every little conflict and problem in your head about music with other people.
Yeah, wonderful. And I imagine you have a trusted team that supports you and travels with you too.
Yeah, it is very important that these are very familiar people. We have no hierarchies. We have a driver, a sound sound guy, a light guy, a content creator from Brazil, Karine. She's doing her best in capturing all that feelings. We have Mercher, Laura. So we are 6 people traveling. And these people are like the best mirrors you can get. They're also very true in their answers, and they also feel the vibe of the evening, and they have to feel my personal feeling of the day and have to recreate it somehow. They have to be inside of my feelings all day, and this is kind of also a very hard job for them. But they are also very empty afterwards, because it's a very easy, let's say, very easy touring. You cannot really prepare it, and you cannot really reflect about that years later. So you have to be in the moment, and when you reach that state of mind also on touring after like gig 6 or something, then you are really into it.
And do you feel a kind of kinship, if you like, with other artists? I'm thinking Hanya Rani, Nils Fram, who also do this kind of what I call piano and synthwave music.
I think there is a comparison. I just don't like these neoclassical. I think it's kind of a wrong approach, because we are not. I'm not the next Mozart. We are not this in kind of this compositional process. We are more in this intuitional. And Hanya Rani and Nils Fram are super top artists. I'm very in love with. But maybe this genre of neoclassic. I'm more. It's more electronical, experimental, ambient, whatever piano stuff. But also maybe neoclassical. Maybe it's just every artist is crying about his genre. I don't want to be like that. I think it's fine. You can say what you want, because you know it much better than me. I'm also in love with like this old Tangerine Dream, the album Leave. So this is what I was starting with, this new sounds, Sigur Rós, all this Iceland. Olafur Arnalds was also one of these. He brought electronic music to the piano. So they are a very nice group of people which are doing this music.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for unpacking some of your wonderful approach and music, and all the best with your continued adventures.
Wonderful. Take care. All the best for you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to check out the show notes for further information, as well as links and details of other episodes in the electronic music series. And just before you go, let me point you to soundonsound.com/podcasts so you can check out what's on our other channels. This has been a Caro C production for Sound on Sound.